Go!
Hello everyone, welcome to Practical GCP. Google has just announced something really exciting called Log Analytics. It's currently in preview, but it basically makes using SQL and BigQuery to query log data a lot easier than what it used to be. So I can't wait to tell you how it actually works and what it looks like. So it basically giving you the combination of SQL and BigQuery for real-time log data query with almost like zero management. So before we talk about log analytics, we have to have a look at the traditional ways to query logs data using SQL. So the log data is very useful, right? If you look at this diagram, which is I've got from one of the Google blog articles, very often you have applications, right? Like whether that's deployed to Cloud Run or Cloud Functions or App Engine, you would typically have logs like generated behind those applications. And if you just use the typical logging feature to match and find the things you need to find, you can't actually build powerful dashboard to actually look at how your application is behaving, to use analytics to drive your operational insights, right? Or having a look at what is actually how your application is doing. So the traditional way, you typically have to do this thing, which is called a log sync. And this is something you can set up with the logs, but then you have to then get each one of these things and filtered and define a schema, create a data set, create the table, and get them into BigQuery before you can query it. And then if something gets changed, sometimes you run into backwards compatible issues with schemas, and then you have to kind of recreate the log sync, which is a bit of a nightmare. So, and then this number of issues basically, as I mentioned, first of all, you have to set it up, right? So the log filters based on what log you want to see, and then to create the schemas, and you have to manage the schemas. But more importantly, you're actually duplicating the data. So the data is duplicated from the log itself into BigQuery to store them separately. So what that means is the data is also duplicated from the log itself originally, right? So, but let's have a look at what it looks like. This is what it used to be like before. So I've actually got a log sync. So these are the things I've set up in this project. You can see that I've got the log syncs in here. So basically these are filtered by certain things I'm interested in, right, from the logs. So for example, this one could be Cloud Functions, and giving some of these are activity logs from audit and data access logs and standard error logs, right? Now you can see this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tables, probably just kind of a one type of thing. In Cloud Functions, now here you can see there's schemas in here. You've got strings, record, basically structs, right? You've got other ones, a bunch of other things in there. The issue is this is obviously you can see, you can preview the data, it's all here, but again, it's not, have to manage all of this stuff yourself, right? So this is what it used to look like. What exactly is log analytics then? So as I mentioned, it's currently in preview, and another useful diagram from the Google blog post announced this thing. So everything's the same, right? But the difference is the log sync is no longer going to be managed by yourself, right? This is the clever bit. So the log sync is now fully managed by Google, and they put everything, all of these logs, into a log bucket, which is centrally managed. But most importantly, it gives you two distinct features. One is this log analytics user interface, which I'm going to show you in a second. This one, you can actually run SQL directly from the log interface to actually query what's inside this bucket, like behind these logs you've got. So, and finally, you can actually create a link between the log bucket and the BigQuery itself, right? So then you can also query all of this stuff in BigQuery, but you do not have to manage any of this stuff yourself, which compares to what I just showed you before, it's zero effort compared to lots of effort just to maintain all of these all over the place. So let's have a look at some of the key features in here. So first of all, no more data duplication, very important, because this also incurs a storage cost and also may run into GDPR issues if you accidentally log sensitive data. So it's going to be a bit of a nightmare to try to clean up in both places, right? So the query you can run in log analytics interface, or you can run it in the BigQuery interface. And as I mentioned, it's very important you have a single Google managed schema, so you do not have all of these separate tables anymore. There's one schema in a unified way that you can query all logs, right? This is really, really important because you don't have to go to all sorts of different places to find it. And one of the key things that Google used in this unified interface, there's a JSON payload in there. So if you log your application logs in the JSON format, right, it will actually come out in this JSON payload. So the JSON data type is a semi-structured data type for Google store your JSON data. It's not the string, right? It's not a string. It's optimized semi-structured data type, built-in data type that you can actually search for all of this using dot notation to find the things you need. So this is very powerful because now it's started utilizing this thing, which is quite new. It's been announced a few months ago. And finally, of course, you can integrate, because it works with BigQuery, right, still. So you can integrate with all of BI tools such as Data Studio or Looker, which gives you all of that powerful visualization. You can see what is going on in there, right? So now let's have a look at what this log analytics thing is set up. So first of all, if you look at this log storage, right, the first time you go to log analytics, right? So when you go to your login page, the first time you go to your log analytics, it's going to actually give you an option to upgrade the bucket. So the bucket, now you can see I've already updated this one. But if you haven't, you can create upgrade button and it's going to give you a few options. So one of the key things is after you upgraded this bucket, this is where kind of Google manage all the log things for you, right? And then after you've done that, you can go to log analytics. Look, this is where it all comes together. You can see that now the BigQuery interface, right? The BigQuery interface is actually exposed to you in this log analytics page, which you can actually directly query and then use to see, let's have a look, right? You can see all of these in here, right? And that's very powerful. So what's very interesting here is I've actually created a Git repository like before. So in here, I've created a sample application and deployed it to Cloud Functions, right? What I've done here is I've used the Google Cloud logging, right, to actually log out some of the random strings, and also this is the JSON data type which I actually log into the logger, right? So when this is logged like this, you see this is a quite complex JSON structure, and I've deployed this into the Cloud function and then created some logs, so it's kind of give me, generate some proper logs in the JSON payload. If you go back to this, you can actually see some of these, right, in here is actually showing. So this is the request I made earlier. You can see this is actually showing you in this JSON, right, data type. This is not a string data type like the text payload. This is the JSON data type. So it knows exactly what you've got in there. And what you can do in there is, if I go back to the BigQuery interface, which you can set up right in here, when you add it in the bucket, you can actually say, if you look at this carefully, this option, you can actually create a new BigQuery dataset that links to this bucket, which will going to be exposed into this log_analytics dataset, right? So if you go back to BigQuery again, you can see the log analytics dataset has this all log. I don't know what default is actually, but the all log one is everything you've got, right? So this is a unified structure where you can see JSON payload is a JSON data type, right? This one here. And then you also have what you usually see from many other places, right? But this one is now a JSON data type, which allows you to search the log quite extensively using the dot notations. So I've created two sample queries to show you what this looks like and what you can do with this. One is when I'm querying this, I'm searching just all the JSON payload in this particular case is not null, right? I don't care about the ones that it is because it's not the ones I care about. Also, this is you can see is a view, right? It's not a table, it's kind of a link. So this one, the timestamp column is the partition column, right? So it's partition. This is where you're going to achieve the cost saving. And then you can say, in this particular case, I just want to look at the last 7 days. But lastly, here is where I'm using the dot notation to look for stuff, right? So I'm looking for any base JSON payload .details.type equals to random text. This is basically when I created the thing, I basically created it as a random text, right? And then I converted to JSON value, then I can search for it using this dot notation format. Now, this is going to give me a lot of things that, the matching to my application logs, right? So very powerful. You can actually find exactly, the type of the logs you have all from the same view, right? You don't have to go to all these different places for different applications. You can filter the things you need and find the things you need from here directly. The other thing, which is the search function. So this is a new, I think this is also in preview. It's a search function that you can use to actually find needles in a haystack. So this one is basically as part of the application logging, I've generated a random string, right? So this is one of the strings actually null. So I put it into here. And the reason I can do this is because the JSON data type, right, in this particular BigQuery table is actually pre-optimized, pre-indexed. So when you look for JSON payload, you can actually look for any kind of a specific pattern in the text, right, in your JSON payload. If you don't have to find, exactly tell you where it is. You just have to search for a token, right, and then it will find the things you need. So in this particular case, you can see the name of the log in this case is this thing. So when I query that, it can very efficiently find this record. So this is very useful for, especially if you have sensitive data, you want to detect sensitive data, you can actually use this to find all sorts of like names and other things. It's quite useful in this particular case. But I think the most important thing and useful thing for me is this filtering the type of logs. Because of the convenience, everything is just in the same place. I can then create powerful visualization like this, right? So, and again, keep in mind, this is a link to the original log. There's no other logs in queue set up. So this thing is real time, right? So you can see this is got 12 and 8. I'm going to try to send more requests while we're talking into the application. So it's going to generate more log. So you can actually see the record count, right? In this case, in Data Studio, or Looker, if you have that, or any other BI tools that you directly connect to BigQuery via this linked data set to build powerful application dashboard for real-time monitoring and insights, right? Let's see if I refresh this thing again. You see now it's changing, right? So this is like a really powerful stuff in the real-time analytics when it's plugged into this log analytics. So, however, there are also some limitations. There are two things that I think, in my opinion, can stop some people from using it right now because it's still in preview. One is it does not support VPC-SE yet. So this is I saw it from the documentation. So the bucket itself, when you're creating the bucket or upgrading the bucket, you cannot use VPC service controls. If you use the perimeters, let's say you already have a bubble protecting organization, it doesn't look like you can use it at the moment. So the other thing is the log bucket only supports the global region. So these might also be a preview restrictions. So once I think it goes to GA, it will probably lift both of these, hopefully. So let's sum this up. So we've talked about how this the log analytics can really simplify the ability for us to use SQL and utilizing BigQuery to query the log data and creating powerful dashboard to show us operational insights, right? So the SQL and to query the data, it almost kind of basically give us zero management because of this log analytics feature. We do not have to create log syncs anymore, and that's really, really important. No need to manage schemas or duplicate data anymore. So data is all stored in one place in that centralized bucket, and then it has a link created, linked to a BigQuery data set. It gives you a view which you can query all of the logs from in a centralized place, right? And then also it makes sure that you have the log view is partitioned with the timestamps, which you can use to only filter the data you need to save cost. And obviously visualization directly from the logs is all real time and created directly from the linked data set that you can create powerful dashboard for your operational insights. Obviously, as I just mentioned, there are restrictions. So if this applies to you, such as VPC-SC or the global bucket, that you are not allowed to use that for some reason, then you probably best to wait for GA before using this feature. But I think it's definitely worth keeping this in mind, because if you're still creating a lot of log syncs, it might be good to start thinking about how you're going to migrate this, which comes to my last point, is this blog. So a lot of this information I've learned, including the diagram, I've actually taken from this blog. This page is very useful because it gives you a lot of insight and details, including you can see comparison of the old and new, and the more detailed comparisons of the different features. So I actually I summarize a lot of these things for you, for the, in my opinion, the most important things. And also you can see here, it mapped all these old ones into the one underscore all logs for you in a unified view. And the other very important section is here. It actually tells you if you need to migrate, you have the old data types, you have the new data types, and how do you actually convert them. So this actually gives you the query migration patterns. So if you look below, for every single type, like what it used to be before and what it is now, it actually tells you how you can actually do the migration. So it has all of these points detailed listed in here. So I think this is a really useful page that will help you in order to to start preparing your migration strategy on how you're gonna migrate your old dashboard, your old log sync into this new one. But yeah, I just want to say thank you very much for bringing this thing. It's just this basically make a lot of the effort that a lot of the developers currently doing, try to create these log syncs and managing them is quite a bit of a mess at the moment with all of that duplicated data. This can really bring all of the different logs together from the traditional log syncs into this unified log analytics view that you can use SQL and BigQuery to actually build very powerful real-time dashboards for your operational insights. Yeah. Thank you very much. I think that's the end of the session. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.
Go, go, go!